Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Off the Bench podcast. My name is Robert Sellers. Today we are instant reacting to week 12 of the college football season. And what a week it was. I mean, this was just straight up historic, amazing college football goodness like we get every week. I mean, you think that you have your signature win on the road against a top 5 team, against an amazing team. You're up 27 at halftime and you blow it. Just like that, destiny kicks you in the face. Or you might be another SEC team thinking that you have an easy path to the SEC championship, thinking that you pretty much have your playoff spot locked. And then Brent Venables comes into your own stadium and, gives you a hard dose of reality. Or maybe you're a Texas team that's starting to gain some momentum, that's going on the road against a team that you've lost to 2 years or 2 times in a row, and you're thinking, this is our get back. We're finally going to figure it out against the Georgia Bulldogs, and they kick you in the face, courtesy of Kirby Smart. Maybe your USC team that's been underappreciated, and all of a sudden you get a big-time win against the Iowa Hawkeyes, and you're vaulted back into relevance. Maybe you're a member of the Atlantic Coast Conference, or the American Conference, or the Big 12 Conference, and you don't really have any idea what's going on right now. And the field is still wide open, and anything can happen, and I love it. This was an amazing weekend of college football, as it always is, and we're going to dive into it. Of course, starting off with what I think is the biggest story of the weekend. To me, this was a really hard one to choose because there was so much stuff that happened in this weekend. But to me, the craziest thing that happened in this college football Saturday was South Carolina going up 30-3 against Texas A&M in the first half and losing. Like, that sentence in and of itself is just madness. I mean, if you watch the first half of this game was over. A&M was getting smoked, and South Carolina just absolutely sold this away. Shout out to Marcell Reed having an historic day. But shout out, first of all, my first and foremost shout out for this Texas A&M win and just this season is just how incredible a coaching job that Mike Elko has done in his first 2 seasons. I mean, my goodness. A&M is doing things that they've never done before, and they're doing them in ways that we never expected it. I mean, who expected Mike Elko to come in and lead his team to a 28-point comeback? We all expected Mike Elko to be the defensive guru that locks players down and locks teams down and brings SEC programs into his house and makes them look like ACC programs. That's what we think Mike Elko is going to do at Texas A&M. And yet so many times this year, his defense has failed him, or his offense turns it over too much. And he just puts together scrappy performance after scrappy performance to get the job done. And I think it's unreal. I mean, I can't even imagine. Can you imagine what the halftime speech would have been in that Texas A&M locker room at halftime? Oh my goodness, the money I would have paid to be a fly on the wall. Because when they came out in the second half, I don't know if I saw this on the broadcast. I don't know how many of y'all saw it, but the cameraman did a great job of putting his camera in the middle of a Marcell Reed huddle, and you could tell that was a different team. A completely different team came out of that locker room. They were motivated. You could tell the leadership that Mike Elko has. He has a grasp on the culture of this program. He's done such an amazing job, such an incredible job getting the most out of his players, motivating his guys. It's unreal what he's been able to accomplish there. I saw a stat on SportsCenter today. All SEC teams that have been in the shoes of A&M since 2004, so pretty much since I have been on this planet, there have been 287 teams that have been trailing another SEC opponent by 27 points or more going into halftime. Out of those 287 teams, one has come back to win, and that one team is the 2025 Texas A&M Aggies, who came back to beat the South Carolina Gamecocks. Literally never happened in the last 21 years what A&M just pulled off. I don't even know who the other teams in the history of the SEC have done that, but at least since 2004, it's only A&M that has. I mean, literally 2 completely different teams from first half to second half. I mean, I have A&M's first half drive chart here in front of me on my glorious notebook. Their drive chart in the first half. Field goal, they started the game with a field goal, then a missed field goal, then a fumble touchdown, then a 3-and-out, and then another 3-and-out, and then another punt, and then another missed field goal, and then an interception and another interception. That was their drive chart in the first half. Just ugly. Ugliness all over the place. About as anything that is ugly offensively that you could imagine happens to A&M in the first half. They gave up a defensive touchdown 2 interceptions, 3 turnovers, 2 missed field goals, 2 3-and-outs, 2 other random punts. It was just atrocious. This team looked terrible. They were dead in the water. They couldn't move the football. They were awful on third down. They were turning it over so often, and it just felt like they were gone. And I was getting texts from all my A&M friends, what is happening? Fire everybody. This is terrible. I hate everything that is going on right now. And it was awful. I mean, South Carolina couldn't score against anybody all season, and they had hung 30 on A&M in their own house in the first half. Crazy. And then A&M comes out in the second half, and you're like, okay, well, let's make this look good. You know, maybe we'll convince the committee this was a close game if we score some garbage points. Let's go out there and give it our best effort. And A&M, to start the second half, goes touchdown, and then you're like, oh, A&M, it's 30-17. Are they going to come back? Yes, they are. Another touchdown, and then yet another touchdown. They scored 4 straight touchdowns in the second half. And these weren't just, South Carolina turned the ball over in their plus territory, we're going to go capitalize on it. They scored an 8-play 35-yard drive, a 7-play 70-yard drive, a 2-play 80-yard drive, and a 10-play 98-yard drive to take a 31-30 lead at home against South Carolina after being down 27 in the first half. Crazy, just absolutely insane. And then their next drive, they went 9 plays, 36 yards, got all the way down to the 1-yard line, and then fumbled to give South Carolina a chance, and then your defense clutched up and got you the win. So, I mean, this was one of the most unbelievable games that I have ever watched. I didn't sit down and watch the whole game. It's just a blessing from the college football gods. Of course, there is one God that we love and we believe in, but it is a blessing from college football itself that we got Indiana Penn State last week and Texas A&M South Carolina this week. Just 2 historic games, 2 games that those programs will remember forever. And if you tell me for a second, this is what I hate when people do this. They see this struggle game from South Carolina and Texas A&M, and they say, Texas A&M should be penalized for this. And they looked awful in the first half. This is South Carolina. Are you kidding me, Texas A&M? They should have won this game by 20 points. That's what they were favored by. We should now drop them in the rankings because they didn't perform the way that we expected them to perform. In my eyes, I do not care because a win is a win. And Texas A&M went out in the second half and played like a championship football team. And if you tell me that there are a bunch of teams in this country that can be down 27 points in the first half and come back and win a football game against a good South Carolina football team, there's almost no teams in the country that can do that, and A&M just did. So, no, I'm not punishing A&M for this. Yes, they looked bad in the first half. They looked atrocious in the first half, but they came back and won the game. It's a win in the win column. It's phenomenal. It's the same thing with Indiana last week. No, you're not penalizing Indiana for winning that game. It was an incredible victory on the road against a good Penn State team. No, they're not getting penalized. And the same for Texas A&M to me. And how about Marcell Reed? I mean, I've been hating on Marcell Reed a little bit this year. The only caveat to Texas A&M that I've seen, the only reason that I have said that they're not going to win the national championship is because, yes, I trust their offensive line. Yes, begrudgingly, I trust their defense. I love their coaching. Their skill position players are phenomenal. But I don't trust Marcell Reed to go out and win a football game with his arm. Well, what did he do today? He went out and won a football game with his arm. If we look at everything that Marcell Reed faced in this game, his team only ran the ball for 64 yards. Usually A&M runs the ball for like over 200 against SEC teams. Only ran the ball for 64 yards. Mario Craver, your best receiver all year, only had 1 catch for 6 yards, so you weren't getting a lot of wide open looks from your dominant X receiver. Not that Craver's a dominant X receiver, but he wasn't just out there winning at will. They had 4 overall turnovers. Of course, 2 of those were Marcell Reed interceptions, and 1 was a fumble that you could maybe blame on Marcell Reed, but I don't know. It was just a weird play. They were down 30-30 at halftime. Of course, everybody knows that. And he still, despite all of that, despite a lackluster rushing attack, despite your number 1 receiver not stepping up, despite all the turnovers, despite the huge deficit, Marcell Reed still had 439 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. 439 yards passing in this game. against the South Carolina team that has had a pretty good pass defense this year. I mean, they haven't been elite, but they've been pretty good. So this was incredible. I think he really built up a strong case for the Heisman Trophy. I know that it's a very immature thing to go, oh, amazing game, Heisman Trophy. But, I mean, this was his Heisman moment. And in my opinion, and I know the Heisman is just so up in the air right now, but in my opinion, a Heisman Trophy winner needs a great statistical year. They need to be a great football player. Their team needs to be at least relevant. I mean, you can't win the Heisman Trophy if you're on 3-6 South Carolina. As good as Lenore Sellers is, he's not winning the Heisman Trophy. And the third, and in my opinion, most important factor is you have to have your Heisman moment. And that either can come in your biggest game of the year, or it can come in a game where it just makes sense. I don't know. You can't really describe. You can't really put into words what the Heisman moment really means. But Marcell Reed and Fernando Mendoza, in my opinion, are the only two quarterbacks that have really had their Heisman moment this year. And that's why, in my opinion, they're the two front runners for the trophy. I mean, their offensive line still played pretty good. I'm talking about A&M's 39 pass attempts for Marcell Reed. He was only sacked twice. A lot of that is Marcell Reed being a really good escaper of the pocket, but still, pretty good offensive line day for the Texas A&M Aggies. And I've said this multiple times this year on the podcast, that this is the best Texas A&M team of all time. And I know I don't really have the authority to speak on of all time because I'm only 19 years old. So definitely the best team in my lifetime. But this is actually, I did some research, this is the 5th ever Texas A&M team to start a season 10-0. The other A&M teams that have started the season 10-0 are the 1919 A&M team. We can all remember that team. The team was legendary. 1939, 1975, and 1992. Those are the only other 4 years that Texas A&M has started a season as good as they've started this season. Obviously, this is the best season they've ever had in the SEC, and this is the highest they've ever been ranked in the college football playoff rankings. In my opinion, in recent memory at least, since the turn of the century, this is by far the best Texas A&M team that we have seen since the turn of the century. I know Johnny Manziel was great, and I'm not saying Marcell Reed's better than Johnny Manziel, but this Texas A&M team is the most complete, the best team that A&M has had since the year 2000. I'll leave it at that. But in my opinion, what I saw from Marcell Reed today checks that box. From what I've seen A&M dominate pretty much every single aspect of the game at some point this year, whether it be special teams with all the plays they made against LSU, whether it be their offensive line up front, just leveling people like they did against Mississippi State and Florida, whether it's their wide receivers and their skill position players stepping up and making big-time plays like they did against Notre Dame, whether it's Marcell Reed going out, trailing a game, and coming back to win it like they just did against South Carolina. If they can put it all together, A&M, yes, 100% has a chance to win a national championship. And this was just a big step towards that. Of course, if they want to make the SEC championship game, they pretty much still have to beat Texas because Georgia's right there and Alabama's right there. So Alabama might beat Auburn. Might. I'm not going to say they're going to, and I'll talk more about that later. But if Alabama and Georgia, or Georgia's already set, so if Alabama wins against Auburn, then it's Alabama and A&M loses to Texas, then it is Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship. So A&M controls their own destiny 100%, but at Texas will definitely be their next game they're looking at. Huge rivalry game, of course. But man, oh man, what a win for Texas A&M. One that I had 100 doubts that they would get. Legitimately, I was sitting in Bryant-Denny Stadium watching the Texas A&M South Carolina game on my phone, and I was like, there's no way they're winning this. And then they scored their first touchdown in the second half. I was like, ooh, you might want to bet Texas A&M right now because they could pull this off. And they did, and it was awesome. So I love that for all my Texas A&M friends. I love that for all the Texas A&M fan base and Aggie Land and all that. Huge win for the Aggies. Biggest story of the week. Just unreal that they were able to pull that game off. I can't believe it. And the next game I'm going to have to talk about is the Oklahoma Sooners traveling on the road to the Alabama Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa and getting a huge season-defining win, 23-21 on the road. I mean, this was massive. Do we remember in the offseason when we were talking about Brent Venables being on the hot seat? Do we remember that? That seems like decades ago at this point because he's had such a good year. And this sort of just defines that good year. I think that this is just a Brent Venables coaching staff masterclass. I cannot overstate how just genius that their game plan has been the last couple weeks. I mean, defensively, their strategy has been working perfectly. It's been just elite, immaculate coaching. I know I've said it a bunch, but it is 100% true. And if you don't believe me, I'm just going to read off some stats. These have been John Mateer's performances in their last 3 SEC wins, which was at South Carolina, at Tennessee, and at Alabama. So in those 3 games that Oklahoma was able to win, John Mateer had 150 passing yards against South Carolina, 159 passing yards against Tennessee, and 138 passing yards on the road at Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and they won the game. That is insanity. John Mateer only threw for 138 yards, and they just went on the road into Tuscaloosa and won a football game. And in that span, this 3-week stretch, not including the Texas game, but their last 3 wins, South Carolina, Alabama, and Tennessee, John Mateer has thrown 2 touchdowns. That's it. That is literally it. And they were both against South Carolina. So in the wins against Tennessee and Alabama, Oklahoma has won at Knoxville and in Tuscaloosa without throwing a touchdown. That is just, I can't believe that. That is crazy. He only has 3 passing touchdowns in SEC play and only 8 on the year. He has 8 passing touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So all this to say, Oklahoma's not going on the road and lighting these teams up. And we've seen Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell come into Tuscaloosa and throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns and win that game. We've seen Joe Burrow throw to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and light up the Crimson Tide secondary. We've never seen, at least in the last 8 years, a team come into Tuscaloosa and win with 0 passing touchdowns and 138 yards passing. I just think that's crazy. I have to say that. So how have they been winning these games? It's simple. They've been stopping the run, and they've been forcing turnovers and taking advantage of teams' mistakes. And they've done that perfectly. In this game, they only ran the ball for 74 yards. They threw it for 138, didn't even eclipse 150 yards passing, didn't even eclipse 75 yards rushing. They only had 12 first downs. They were 3 for 13 on 3rd down. They had a very, very terrible game offensively in this game, and they still won. And that's mainly because of their defense. Their blitz schemes are so good. I'm talking about bringing safeties, bringing nickels, whatever it is. Brent Venables, he just knows exactly how to scheme up an offensive line and torch a quarterback. And Ty Simpson, by the way, has been amazing at picking up blitzes this season. You've seen it in his pre-snap reads. He motions, he fakes the snap, and then he goes up and he tells his offensive line, hey, we're going to shift right. Or, hey, pick up middle linebacker, we're hot off the nickel. Whatever it is, Ty Simpson has picked it up all season long. And Brent Venables comes in, and they just have hot blitzers all over the place. And not all of those result in sacks. Not all of those result in QB knockdowns or any of those stats. Some of them just result in hurrying up an Alabama offense and making them uncomfortable and knocking them off of what they want to do, eliminating their rhythm. That's what Brent Venables did immaculately in this football game. Also, their run stunts are so good, whether it's the nut stunts or the ton stunts, whether that's nose under tackle over nose, whatever it is. Oklahoma, their run stunts are awesome with their big D tackles. To me, that's the main reason they're stopping the run. Coaching-wise, schematically, it's been so good. It's been so good for Oklahoma in the SEC this year. Also, I just had to shout out Kip Lewis for just being an absolute legend. That guy's a dog. Literally the entire game, whether it's running onto the field or running off the field or Dixieland, whatever it is, Kip Lewis is jumping around near the Alabama student section, just talking crap the whole time. I love that. I thought that was legendary from Kip Lewis. And he backed it up, had 2 sacks, led his team in tackles. So Kip Lewis, legendary performance in Tuscaloosa. Also had a pick 6 last year. That dude, he owns Alabama's offense right now. So I love to see that from Oklahoma. They're struggling offensively. Just like it's not as bad as it was last year, but it's not like Oklahoma's gone to new heights offensively in the SEC this year. I know Ben Arbuckle's going to get a lot of praise, but this Oklahoma offense has not done anything that extraordinary against Tennessee, South Carolina, or Alabama, and yet they're going on the road, they're outsmarting teams defensively, and they are not making mistakes, and they're capitalizing off of other teams' mistakes and winning football games on the road in the SEC, which is the hardest thing to do in college football. So, mad respect to Oklahoma. They're now 8-2. They got Missouri and they got LSU, both at home, I believe, in the next couple weeks. You have to assume if they win those two games, they'd be in at 10-2. But man, there's some chaos this year in college football, so who knows if that'll even happen. But Oklahoma's looking really good right now. If they can finish the year strong, they'd probably be in. But this is just a huge win for Oklahoma. Big shout out for the Sooners and their unbelievable performance this year in the SEC. As we pivot to the Alabama Crimson Tide, this was a weird game for Alabama, because usually when I talk about the Crimson Tide, it's the complete opposite. I mean, especially in the three specific wins I'm going to discuss for the Crimson Tide: against Missouri, against Tennessee, and against South Carolina. The common factor about those three games, the three that they won, they beat Missouri by 3 points, they beat Tennessee by 17, and they beat South Carolina by 8 points? Is that what it was? I don't remember exactly. But the common factor of all three of those games, Alabama was outgained in total yards in all three of those wins. And I've just been watching Alabama this season, and I've said to myself, this team is really vulnerable. They're not going out there and dominating games. They have no consistent run game. They're really good on third down, but their wide receivers aren't the best at creating separation. They're not the most efficient offense. I mean, they're great, but I've said it all year that they're very vulnerable. And they've gone out and they've won these games by winning the big moments, by not turning the ball over, and by just sort of having smarter play calling in the fourth quarter and winning football games. Well, this week was literally the exact opposite of everything else that we've seen from the Crimson Tide this season. Everything that I just said, it was just completely flipped. I mean, they had 200 more total yards than Oklahoma did. They threw the ball for like 200 more yards than they did, of course. John Materi only had 138 yards passing in this game. They ran the ball better than Oklahoma, which I didn't think was going to happen at all. They had 11 more first downs in this game. They had 9 more minutes of time of possession. Statistically, they dominated this game. I mean, Alabama should have won this game if you're just looking at total yards, first downs, and everything else that just points to a win in football. And yet they lost because they lost the big moments. They turned the ball over. They struggled on third down. It was literally like Alabama inversed. So it was just such a weird experience to watch this game, because it just felt like it was a different team out there. I don't know. It was just really weird. And even Oklahoma, I mean, in their scoring drives, they put up 23 points. How did they put up 23 points if their offense was so bad? Well, their first scoring drive was their field goal. They only had to go 23 yards because Alabama turned it over in their own territory. Their second, or no, that's not why, because they got a big special teams play. Their second score was a pick six. Again, they didn't have to drive down the field and score. Their third scoring drive was 2 plays and 31 yards because Alabama fumbled a punt. Their fourth scoring drive, after halftime, was a 41-yard drive field goal. So 41 yards is a pretty good distance to drive the football, but they didn't punch it in the end zone. And then their final field goal drive was after another Alabama turnover. So not once in this football game did Oklahoma have a dominant drive down the field of more than like 8 plays where they punched it in the end zone. That never happened once in this football game. They did not establish a drive once. Alabama's defense played really good in this game. The only reason that Oklahoma was able to score was off of Alabama mistakes, which is just so uncharacteristic from this Alabama team this year. They haven't turned the ball over very much at all. And we saw a bad interception from Ty Simpson. And when you have passing downs and you have one guy to the right with 3 defenders on that side, you should probably start your read on the other side of the field. Ty Simpson did not. He threw right into an interception, pick 6. Ryan Williams fumbled. He didn't drop a ball this time, but he fumbled inside his own territory. And then Ty Simpson on an amazing, I think it was Kip Lewis that got the strip sack. I don't remember exactly, but I mean, Alabama did not take care of the football. They made mistakes. They spotted Oklahoma a lot of points. Oklahoma did a fantastic job taking advantage of them. And it's really hard to come back and win a game against a really good defense like Oklahoma has. So do I think that Oklahoma went out there and proved that they were the better team against Alabama? No, I do not. Because Alabama had more they played better in this game. They just made so many crucial mistakes that Oklahoma was able to take advantage of. And if I'm an Oklahoma fan or if I'm an Alabama fan and I'm choosing, like, would I rather have Oklahoma's path where I didn't dominate this game, but because of coaching we scrapped out a win in enemy territory, or yeah, we played better, but we made a bunch of mistakes and that's why we lost. I'm taking Oklahoma's path every single time. I'm not saying this is a win for Alabama. It's 100% a win from Oklahoma. But I think there's some very fixable issues in terms of this game for Alabama. I mean, usually when I've been watching Alabama, I thought they had a lot of unfixable issues, such as their run game, such as the lack of pass rush at times, such as their receivers not be able to create separation. But I would take, if I'm an Alabama fan, I would take a loss like this over a loss where you get completely dominated. And Alabama did not get dominated in this game. It was third downs, it was turnovers, and it was sort of just gifting Oklahoma the 17-point advantage. Is really what happened in this game. Fortunately for both these teams, it sort of seems like they both control their own destiny. It's just now, if Alabama had won this game, they would not have to go on the road and beat Auburn next week to make the SEC championship. Now they do. So now, all of a sudden, the Iron Bowl means a lot. Not that it didn't mean a lot before. It just means a lot in terms of college football playoff aspirations for the Crimson Tide. Because if they lose that game, they're 9-3. I know they had a great run in the SEC, but are we really letting a 9-3 Bama into the tournament? They didn't last year. They might not this year. So that is a huge game in a couple weeks, and an unfortunate loss for the Crimson Tide, but they got to move on from it. They got to face the next game. So does Oklahoma, and just a huge win for the Sooners. They're definitely their biggest win as a member of the Southeastern Conference, for sure, in my opinion. We're going to talk about their rivals in a second here, with them playing the Georgia Bulldogs. Interesting game. I'm just going to take a sip of water before I get into it. Got to stay hydrated. So, Georgia hosted the Texas Longhorns for the first time ever, really. Texas went on the road at Georgia in Athens, and they lost again. Who would have thunk it? First of all, I just want to say this was an unreal atmosphere in Athens. I wasn't there, but it just looked so awesome. And I was there for the Alabama-Georgia game this year. That was incredible. There's a couple places in the SEC, and there's a couple places in the country, but I've really only experienced the SEC football side of things. But there's just a couple venues in this sport that are just golden, and they're untouchable, and they're unparalleled to anything that you can experience in college sports. And Athens, Georgia is one of them. They pull out all the stops, especially for a big night game like this. It just looks so awesome. And why is that, you may ask? In my opinion, it's because of Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart, my goodness, what a performance tonight. And can we just take a step back and marvel at what Kirby Smart has built at Georgia? It has been such a journey for him, and he has just built an absolute titan over there. And no, are their teams going to be as dominant as they were in 2021 and 2022? Probably not, with the new era of college football. But still, man, that place is so special. And of course, it has all the history and all the tenure and all the amazing stuff of the past Georgia legends. But Kirby Smart has just brought a different edge to it. And I think we have him to thank for the amazing atmosphere in Athens, Georgia. It's incredible over there. From Kirby Smart, if I were to define in one word what I saw from Kirby Smart tonight, that word is gutsy. And it's so awesome when you get to define a college football performance as gutsy. But this totally was. And I love everything about that. I love a gutsy Kirby Smart. How about getting the most out of your players? That's what impresses me most from Kirby Smart this season, is his ability to take maybe not the most talented players ever. Maybe not your players that are going to be first-round draft picks, or players that are going to go on to have Hall of Fame NFL careers and win Super Bowls and be unreal football talents. But he's taken these guys that are not going to do all those things, and he's really making the most of them. I mean, do we really think that I don't know, London Humphreys is going to be an amazing NFL receiver? I don't think so. But Kirby Smart is able to just find the exact way for him to maximize his game at Georgia. Same thing with a lot of these running backs. I mean, I don't think Chauncey Bowens is going to be like the greatest NFL player, but he didn't have the best game today, but I mean, Kirby Smart is really getting the most out of him. Guys like Cash Jones, guys like Nate Frazier even. I mean, Kirby Smart is really just doing an amazing job with this football team. Again, a football team that is not his most talented by any stretch of the imagination, but a football team that is giving 110% and that he is getting the max out of. He is literally squeezing all of the juice from this football team, and it's so much fun to watch. How about Gunnar Stockton too? That's the main one. The main player that, is not going to go on to have like an amazing NFL career. He's not going to be a first-round draft pick. He's not going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. But what a season Gunnar Stockton has had, and what a game he had tonight. 24 of 29, 229 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, but an amazing performance from Gunnar. He was all over the place. He was balling. And again, Gunner's a guy that is just such a culture guy. The guys rally around him. I heard Kirk Herbstreit in the broadcast say tonight, he's the straw to the drink or something like that. I forget what it was. Great analogy. He was phenomenal today. He's getting better and better, man. He started off the year playing kind of timid. He didn't really want to push the ball down the field. And then he started to push the ball down the field, and we were like, okay, that's good, Gunnar, that you're pushing the ball down the field. But, yeah, you're really not doing it great quite yet. And then in the last couple games, he started to layer footballs better. He started to have way more confidence. And yes, he's been making mistakes, but the critiques went from Gunnar, throw the ball down the field, to thanks for throwing the ball down the field, Gunnar, but actually do it accurately, to Gunnar, you're throwing the ball down the field well, but you can tweak this one little thing and make this one thing a little bit better. You can fit this one a little better. You can maybe throw the ball a little earlier. Timing can be a little bit better. And now all of a sudden, Gunnar Stockton is clicking. He has improved so much throughout the entire season. And I credit Kirby Smart. I credit Gunnar Stockton's work ethic. And I credit just the Georgia program as a whole. Just, again, squeezing the most juice out of a football player that they possibly can. I thought another really cool thing that Georgia did in this football game, they took Texas's strengths and they just vanished them. It's like what Master Shifu did to Poe. You take your what am I trying to say? You take your enemy's weakness and you use it against them. And that's sort of what Georgia did in this game. I mean, I watched into this game, and I've watched Texas all year. And in my opinion, their greatest strength is their front seven. They were really good at stopping the run all year, and they can get pressure on the quarterback so well because Colin Simmons is an alien. And I watched this game and I said, dang, Georgia's running the football. And they ran the ball for 128 yards against an elite Texas front seven. Nate Frazier averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Dylan Bell had a really nice end around, I think is what that was, for 8 yards. That was pretty cool. Gunnar Stockton was impactful with his legs in this game. And then Texas was only able to get 2 sacks, I believe is what it was. It was just 2 sacks for Texas. One from Ty Anthony Smith and one from Colin Simmons. And of course, Colin Simmons is a dog. I mean, spotting Colin Simmons 1 sack is just going to happen. So I was impressed by how Georgia's offensive line played in this game and how they were able to neutralize an elite Texas front seven. I mean, this team was first in the SEC in rushing yards allowed per game. And Georgia ran the ball very well on Texas. And that was, to me, the X factor for this game for Georgia. And they did it. They played really well there. Of course, if you watch this game, you know the fourth quarter was very much different than the rest of the game. Georgia took a 14-3 lead into halftime. They were playing great. They had rhythm. They were running the ball and passing the ball really well. And then in the third quarter, Texas kind of had the momentum. The Anthony Hill interception was huge. And then they converted that into points. And then the fourth quarter was just an absolute blowout. And that's where the gutsy performance was from Kirby Smart. The 4th down conversion, so good. The onside kick was awesome too. I mean, I love that from him. A lot of people say you shouldn't use gimmicks. You shouldn't use weird play calling and trick plays to beat teams because that just means you're too afraid to line up and beat them one-on-one. I just hate that. I think that the gimmicks and the trick plays and everything is what's fun about football. I think that you not only believe in your team to have the advantage over another team skill-wise, but if you could also have the advantage play calling then why not take it? So I loved what I saw from Kirby Smart in that aspect. How about Mike Bobo? We are getting so much hate on Mike Bobo as Georgia fans. Mike Bobo just called an immaculate game. I mean, the amount of his red zone offense is spectacular. And if you doubt that, just watch the game. They were great in the red zone. The amount of times that Mike Bobo is able to get his tight ends wide open in the red zone is baffling. So I have a lot of respect for what Mike Bobo did, especially without his starting X receiver, Colby Young, still out for the year, and yet Gunnar Stockton still throws the ball for 229 yards. So a lot of respect there. I mean, if you don't have fun watching Zachariah Branch, I just have to mention him. Zachariah Branch is so cool. He's so shifty. He's so hard to tackle. I love Zachariah Branch. He only had 6 catches for like 41 yards in this game. But still, I mean, he's an awesome player to watch. I'm so glad that he ended up at Georgia. So, big time win for Georgia. They basically clinched. Also, I just wanted to mention, we all talk about Steve Sarkisian being a great play caller and being great on third down. Kirby Smart once again dominated third down in this game, and Texas was 2 for 12 on third down. Another instance where Georgia took Texas's strengths and just said, you're not gonna have those strengths today. We're gonna dominate your front seven. We're gonna be great on third down, even though that's what you're supposed to be good at. We're gonna dominate those aspects. Don't worry about it. We're fine. So impressed with what I saw there. And as I was saying, Georgia pretty much clinched their playoff spot. They play Charlotte, and then they play Georgia Tech at the end of the year. They should, of course, easily beat Charlotte. And Georgia Tech is a playoff, or not a playoff. They're a rivalry game. But Georgia's so much better than Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech just barely squeaked by against 1-9 Boston College today. I don't know how Georgia Tech keeps barely winning these games, but they do. So if Haynes King could pull off an upset against Georgia, that would be awesome, just because I love Haynes King. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Georgia will go 11-1, and if they get some help from either Texas or Auburn winning their game against Alabama or A&M, they will make the SEC championship game. If not, they will firmly be in the playoffs at 11-1, and I think they would take that 100% of the time. They probably would maybe get a bye too, but I don't know. We'll see how that all shakes out. But Georgia, in my opinion, yes, is in the playoffs, and what a turnaround that's been. I mean, despite all they've gone through, the fact that they are now in pretty much an easy position to make the playoffs. I mean, just think of everything they've done. I mean, they almost lost to Tennessee in that crazy game in week 3. They lost at home to Alabama, lost at home for the first time since 2019. That was devastating for them. But then they turn around and they barely lose to Florida. They barely beat Florida. They barely beat Auburn. There was another game, wasn't there? There was Ole Miss was really close too. The amount of battles they've been in, the toughest schedule that they've had this year, and they're still in an easy position to make the playoffs right now. So such an impressive coaching year for Kirby Smart. To me, this coaching performance this year has 100% solidified him as the best coach in college football right now. And frankly, I don't think it's a discussion. I know Ryan Day's been doing some great things at Ohio State, but Kirby Smart at Georgia, and in my opinion right now, is the golden standard for college football coaches. And just all props to Kirby and his program right now. They're on another level. Go Dogs tonight for sure. It's their night. Switching gears now, just talked about 3 SEC games. We're going to go out all the way to the West Coast, where USC got a big win over Iowa. This was hype. I was really cheering for USC in this game. I've been high on them all season long. And frankly, I just wanted their game against Oregon to be a huge marquee matchup, which it will be. I'll talk about that in a second. But the best sight that I saw from this game was at the very end when USC clinched it with the Iowa unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. And Lincoln Riley, after clinching the win, just went nuts. He started jumping up and down. He was hugging his boys. I love to see that. I mean, Lincoln Riley's gone through a lot as the head coach of USC, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of crazy seasons. I just thought it was really cool to see that release of emotion, that release of joy that he had from winning this game. And it's been a weird season for USC. It's like a backwards USC year. And what I mean by that is usually what the media does with a Lincoln Riley coached USC team is they start the year talking about him all the time. They're like, man, USC this, USC that. All these contenders in the Big Ten, all these contenders nationally. You got Alabama, you got Georgia, you got Ohio State, you got USC. They just always seem to be thrown in there, and they always seem to be overrated and talked about all the time. And then it turns out, they lose a few games, their defense gets exposed, and you're like, I guess they're done for the year. And that's sort of how it goes. It starts off really high, and then you lose games, and people are like, they kind of forget about you. But this year has been the complete opposite. They were unranked to start the year. Barely anybody was talking about them in the media. It was so weird. They were like a ghost. Like, no one was mentioning USC. And even all throughout this season, barely anybody's talked about the Trojans. I mean, the Big Ten has been all about Indiana and all about Ohio State and Penn State's debacle and Oregon's what are they question. So USC, shockingly, has just kind of flown under the radar. And all of a sudden, they find themselves in prime position to knock off Oregon and find a way maybe to make the playoffs. Who knows? And I think if they do make the playoffs, I think USC is a dangerous team. I have them ranked like 12th in my power rankings, which are very different than my resume rankings. Those are two different things. But I have USC. I think they're a really, really good team. And if they can pull off the win at Oregon next week, they have a very strong case to make the playoffs. Of course, their losses are to Illinois on the road and then to Notre Dame on the road as well. So 2 tough games. But if they can win against Oregon, I think that they have a very strong chance. And how about the USC defense? I mean, USC's defense has been their Achilles heel, my goodness, the last few years. And in the second half, they shut out the Hawkeyes. They were down 21-7 at halftime, and Iowa did not score another point from that point on. And I have Iowa's second half drive chart right here. They went punt, interception, 3 and out, turnover on downs. That's all Iowa had in the second half. USC ran clock. They kept Iowa's offense off the field, and when they were on the field, they made plays. So shout out to the Trojan defense for really holding it up. And what I said going into this game in my preview video for USC and Iowa, I talked about how this was a make or break game for USC's offensive line. And I said the same thing about Oregon's offensive line when they played Iowa. But Iowa blitzes a lot. I was good in the front 7. And to me, USC, I thought their offensive line, I thought they were dominant in their front offensive line when they played against Michigan. Even when they played against Illinois, they just looked really, really good and really, really powerful in their run game and their pass protection. And then they played Notre Dame, and they just got bullied. And so I was like, oh, is this offensive line for real? What are they going to show us against Iowa? And it's not like they dominated this game, but they played pretty good. They only got, I think Iowa only had 2 sacks in this game. Might have only been 1, so pass protected pretty well. They were able to milk clock in the second half because they had consistency in the run game. And Maeva, just such an efficient passer. I think Maeva is what makes this offense so well-rounded and so potent and so effective, is because he doesn't turn the ball over. They don't have much negative plays, and he just knows where to go with the football. But despite all of that, despite all those things, despite USC's defense, despite Lincoln Riley, despite Maeva, the offensive line, whatever it may be, the star of the show tonight, and the star of the show pretty much all season, has been wide receiver Makai Lemon. What a performance from Makai Lemon. I believe he had 10 catches for 160 yards in this game, if I have that correct. In the rain against Iowa, to put up those numbers is not an easy thing to do. I mean, it was pouring down rain in this game. And yes, Makai Lemon had 10 catches, 153 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged 15.3 yards per catch. He was Maeva's go-to guy. He has been all season. And he once again proves why, in my opinion, he is having the best season in college football in terms of wide receivers this year. So really impressed with what Makai Lemon was able to do. If he can do that against Oregon again, if he can show up and really, really make an impact in that game, they've got a good chance to win it. So I was really impressed with Makai Lemon. I thought it was awesome. And again, I've said it like a million times. The USC-Oregon game is going to be cinema. I don't know if they've announced when it is. I don't know if it'll be Friday night, Saturday night. If it somehow gets stuck on like 2:30 on the Big Ten network, Big Ten's shenanigans is the worst. They do so many. I don't know why they schedule games. Like, I don't know why USC Iowa was Big Ten network and Penn State Michigan State was CBS. Like, what are we doing, CBS? But hopefully that USC Oregon game's on a good channel with good broadcasters and a good picture. Because if it's not, I'm going to be upset because it's a huge game. But I'm sure it'll be announced soon. I'm sure we'll know in a minute. Switching gears once again from USC to their dreaded rivals, the Notre Dame Irish, who went on the road to Pitt and just dismantled the Panthers. I don't know why people thought this was going to be such a close game. I really don't. Notre Dame just dominated the line of scrimmage we thought they were going to. This was not surprising to me at all. I mean, on both sides of the ball, Pittsburgh couldn't really run the ball. I can't even begin to pronounce Pittsburgh's quarterback's name, so I'm going to even try. But the true freshman quarterback from Pittsburgh that's been playing good was harassed all night. Jeremiah Love exploded in this game. He had so many awesome carries. He's so electrifying. Jeremiah Love is so cool. He's so much fun to watch. He's so athletic. I really love watching Jeremiah Love, and once again, he proved why he's having a really good season. Does he have Heisman chances? Maybe. Heisman really is wide open right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it went to almost anybody at this point, except for maybe like DJ Lagway. He's probably not going to win. But Jeremiah Love, 23 carries, 147 yards, averaged 6.4 yards per carry, had an awesome spin move in the first quarter that was just football goodness. So great performance from him. In my opinion, I think it's really impressive how Notre Dame has weathered the storm this entire year. And what I mean by that is starting 0-2 was rough. A lot of that they could control, a lot of that they couldn't control in terms of how they won and lost those games or how they lost those games. But there was so many people talking about Notre Dame all year. They were saying, oh, after these two games, their schedule's so weak. After these two games, man, even if they go 10-2, I'm not putting them in the playoff. Oh, Notre Dame, man, they're not as good as we thought they were. They've taken a step back from last year. There's been a storm for Notre Dame this year in terms of that, and they haven't played the easiest schedule, and yet they have been able to win now 8 games in a row, and their next 2 games are against somebody in Stanford. I think Boston College and Stanford. So they are pretty much clinched at this point to make the playoffs. I think they're pretty much in, and they could win the whole thing, 100%. There are not a lot of teams right now that I think could win the whole thing. Notre Dame, to me, is one of them. I am terrified of Notre Dame if I'm a fan of any other college football fan base that's going to be in the playoffs. I think that they're so good on the line of scrimmage, especially defensively. Jeremiah Love is an X factor. CJ Carr is getting better and better. He does have a bit of a turnover issue, I will say. The last couple weeks, he's got only 4 interceptions on the season, but he threw 2 today. He threw a pretty bad one against USC. Actually, that's not true. He has way more than 4 interceptions. ESPN is just lying. He has 6 interceptions. So not the best turnover numbers there, but still a great quarterback. I still trust him. Big win for Notre Dame. Pittsburgh, I guess, doesn't matter for their playoff chances because all they have to do is win the ACC, and this game doesn't affect that, as Pat Narduzzi very astutely told us this week. But not a good loss for them, losing by 22 points. Not great, but big win for Notre Dame for sure. Also in the SEC, Ole Miss took down Florida. That was a fun game. It was close for a while. I was kind of hoping Florida would win just for the chaos of college football. But it's hard for me to cheer against Ole Miss just because I think Trinidad is so much fun. I love Trinidad Chambliss. There's so many like 3rd and longs where Trinidad just tucks it and runs, and he's so fast. He's so elusive. He's great in the pocket. I literally, my notes for this game are fun Trinidad, period. And then Kawan, because Kawan Lacey had an awesome game. He ran the ball for like over 200 yards in this game. I think it was like 234 or something like that he ran the ball for. Let me find the exact number. 224. Okay, off by 10. For 3 touchdowns. And he averaged, if my math is correct, 7.2 yards per carry. So, I mean, this was a Florida defensive line. This is a Florida front 7 that, yes, they're banged up. But we talked about them all year, at least the beginning of the year, how they're a great run defense. And they were against Miami. They were against LSU. They were not against A&M. But they've been pretty good against the run all season long. Only for Kawan Lacey to come in and run the ball for 224 yards on him. So, impressive performance from Ole Miss on the ground. And how about this defense? I mean, of course, everyone with Ole Miss always talks about Lane Kiffin's offense this, Trinidad Chambliss that, Kawan Lacey, all these weapons that they have. But this defense gave up 24 points in the first half and 0 in the second half. They shut out the Gators in the final 2 quarters of this football game. Lagway really struggled to move the ball. Jaden Baugh couldn't really run the ball very well in the second half at all. They eliminated big plays. They played really good football in the second half. And my main critique on Ole Miss this year has been their inconsistency on defense. This is a good performance from them. 0 points allowed in the second half. I know they weren't great in the first half. They allowed big plays. They got beat on a deep post route from one of Florida's random wide receivers. I think it was, who was it? Was it Sturdivant? J. Michael Sturdivant? I don't know. It might have been him. I don't really watch enough Florida football, at least this year. But great win for Ole Miss, great defensive win, great job by Trinidad Chambliss. I just felt like I had to mention that in this reaction video because it was a fun game to watch. It was a close game and a good win for Ole Miss. They are now 10-1. I think their only other game this year is against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. So they're pretty much also kind of clinched in the playoffs. But if they lose to Mississippi State, I mean, you really never know. And then I have to mention, because I always have to mention the high-profile teams that win big games, or not win big games, but win games big. Indiana, Ohio State, and Texas Tech all cruise to easy wins. And you might say to yourself, well, I mean, they're just playing Wisconsin and UCLA and UCF. Of course it's going to be easy wins. And it's not always easy wins. It doesn't always work out like that. So I have to give those teams flowers for going out and take care of business. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. Utah got a huge win against Baylor on the road. They keep their at-large chances alive. Maybe they can make it. I think they would have to have some help, but who knows? Miami also took a huge step forward in their at-large chances by dominating NC State. NC State, that's not an easy team to beat, and Miami beat them pretty convincingly. Georgia Tech, I just wrote Georgia Tech. How do they keep doing this? They just barely squeak by again to beat Boston College. Michigan almost lost to Northwestern. That would have been crazy. But I mean, I think their minds are just on Ohio State, if I'm being completely honest, as they should be, because if Michigan can win that game, they have a chance to make the playoffs, and it would just be hilarious. So I just have to mention they did struggle. They did need a last-second field goal to beat Northwestern in a neutral site, so that did happen. So the last thing I'm going to do on the Instant Reaction podcast is break down some of the standings that we have right now, starting with the ACC, because the ACC is wicked. It's always wicked, but now it's starting to make a little bit more sense. With Duke losing, everything sort of opened up, at least in my opinion. There's 4 one-loss teams remaining in this conference: Georgia Tech, Virginia, SMU, and Pittsburgh. And right now, the standings are also in that order. If the season ended today, it'd be Georgia Tech and Virginia in the ACC championship game. Of course, now with Duke out, it sort of feels like the winner of the ACC championship game is kind of a lock for the playoffs. So this is important stuff. Virginia Tech plays Pitt next week. That's a big-time game. Winner of that game, I think, clinches a spot in the ACC championship game. I think if Georgia Tech wins, they do. Pitt might not, because Pitt has to play Miami after that. That'll be a big game. Virginia has a bye week, and then they play Virginia Tech. So that Virginia Tech game could decide a lot. That's really, really fun too. Of course, rivalry games that really mean something. Those are really, really fun, so I'm glad that we have that. And then SMU still has to play Louisville and at Cal. And then if somehow all these teams gain another loss, then maybe, I guess, Miami could have a chance to make the ACC championship game. I don't think they deserve to, so I hope they don't. I hope it's one of these teams. I think it's more fun when we have 2 really small teams with a chance to make it. And I think for the ACC, they probably don't want Miami to be in the ACC championship game because they want to get as many teams as they want in as they can. So if Miami gets an at-large bid, you want someone else to maybe get the ACC championship bid. But we'll see what happens in that conference. It'll be very, very exciting to see who makes it. And then, of course, in the SEC, A&M still unbeaten. And then your one-loss teams are Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama. If Alabama takes down Auburn in 2 weeks, they will clinch their spot in the title game. If A&M beats Texas, they will clinch their spot in the title game. And then Ole Miss and Georgia need some help, but if they can win their games, it's realistic that they could maybe find a chance to make it. Georgia more so than Ole Miss because Georgia beat Ole Miss. And then Oklahoma, Vandy, and Texas are still sitting with 2 losses in the SEC. I mean, I know you said, why is Texas in this list? Why are you still saying Texas is relevant? They had 3 losses already. If we just assume, let's just assume a couple things. Let's assume that Texas beats Texas A&M. I'm not saying I'm thinking that's going to happen. I'm just saying let's just assume that it does. So we'll say Texas beats A&M. They also beat Arkansas. Are you really going to leave Texas out and put Oklahoma in? I mean, Texas beat Oklahoma pretty convincingly one-on-one. Texas has a win at A&M in this scenario, or not at A&M, at home against A&M. Are we really going to say Texas doesn't deserve to be in? Maybe. I'm not the one that's saying they should. I'm just saying it's worth a conversation, and a conversation will definitely be had because just if anyone has any opportunity for Texas to be in the playoffs, the SEC and ESPN is going to fight for it so hard, and it's going to be really annoying, but they might just get it. So if you really want to put Texas down, A&M or Arkansas has to beat them. You do not want a 9-3 Texas team having a chance to make the playoffs Because also, if they do, if a 9-3 Texas team just sneaks in at the 11 seed, that means the 5 seed has to play Texas in the first round. They don't want that. This is still a good Texas team. Vandy, if Vandy wins out, are you going to keep out a 10-2 Vandy? They've got Kentucky and at Tennessee. Both those games are going to be tough. I mean, they're definitely not the most winnable games ever, but if they win out, are you really going to exclude them? Same with Oklahoma. 10-2 Oklahoma, they have to be in. If Alabama loses to Auburn, are they out? I mean, I would assume so, but at the same time, they've won some big games. Ole Miss and Georgia and A&M seem to be in, but you never know. So the SEC is fascinating. The Big Ten, of course, Ohio State, and Oregon are the 3 at the top, but Oregon could lose to USC. Michigan could still beat Ohio State, and they could still make the Big Ten championship game because their only other loss is a non-conference game to Oklahoma. The Big 12 is pretty much controlled by Texas Tech and BYU, but Utah could still sneak in as an at-large bid. There's just, in the Power 4, a lot of games left to be played, a lot of scenarios left to happen. Really, anything could happen in any of these conferences, and I'm excited to watch it. If you think that the season's almost over and the best of college football is behind us, I think you're wrong, because there's so much left in this regular season that's going to lead to, I think, what's going to be an elite postseason. And that leads me to the final piece of my agenda for the Instant Reaction podcast of Week 12. I don't know if a lot of you are aware that this happened. A lot of you, we're sitting back watching Texas A&M make a historic comeback against South Carolina. Or you're kicking back in your lawn chair watching Oklahoma upset Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Or you're watching Georgia, Texas. Or you were watching Iowa, USC. Or Notre Dame, Pittsburgh. Or Ole Miss, Florida. And if you were doing that, that's awesome. I respect that. I bet you had a really fun, really awesome college football Saturday, unless you're a South Carolina fan or maybe, an Iowa fan. But another result that happened in college football this week, the Navy midshipmen eliminated the South Florida Bulls from playoff contention, taking them down 41-38. What a win for Navy. If you're not aware, I picked Navy to make the playoffs at the beginning of the year, and I have been cheering for Navy every single week. And I've been watching their games. They've been electric. This week was awesome. I think Eli Horvath only threw for like 38 yards in this game. And Navy wins 41-38 against South Florida to move into first place in the American Conference, by the way. Also, East Carolina beat Memphis. So the 4 teams with 1 loss right now in the American and that have the best odds to make the playoffs from the group of 5 are Navy, North Texas, Tulane, and East Carolina. Anything can happen. A lot of these teams play each other. The American Conference title race is going to be a lot of fun. Navy plays Memphis on the road, and then they play Army. But it's a funny thing because they're going to play Army after the college football playoff selection show. So they're either going to be in or out of the playoffs, and then they'll play Army. So I don't really understand how that's going to work, but I'm fascinated to see. I really hope Navy makes the American Championship game just so we see that scenario. And I hope they make the playoffs. I know they'll probably get blown out in the first round, but I think it'll be really fun. So I'm really happy that Navy won that game. I got hyped watching that game. It was an 11 o'clock game. It was awesome. So big time win for Navy. I had to shout them out. And South Florida, who a lot of people picked to make the playoffs, is now officially eliminated from American Conference Championship potential, I think. So big time stuff for Navy. And with that is the end of my Instant Reaction podcast. It's pretty late on a Saturday night. It's actually officially Sunday, so it's the Lord's Day. And if you get anything from this podcast, it is that Jesus loves you. It is that if you are ever in any place of sadness or despair, or you don't have any hope or faith or love, you can always turn to Jesus. He will always accept you. He will always love you for who you are. And it is our job to love others on this planet and to spread his good news that he has died for our sins on the cross. And salvation and happiness is through Jesus Christ. And the only way that we will be fulfilled as human beings is through God's love. So that's what we should be striving for and searching for. And I just want to say thanks so much for watching. God bless. I hope you go make somebody smile today, this week, this weekend, wherever you are on this planet. And just once again, thanks so much for watching. God bless, and have a great week, folks.